Okay, here we go. So, all this says we're going to state the domain and range, say September 16th, 2015. And I'm going to say warm up. State the domain and range up. Okay, A looks something like this. There's a dot right here, and an arrow that goes on like that. The dot is at -2, 3. Can somebody tell me in English what the domain means, please, in English? Oh, goodness. Go ahead. Yeah?
Oh, like that sentence that you made us right? But
just in English, what does the domain mean? What is it?
It's like the range of line between both axes.
Yeah, so it's the span of the axis, is all we're going to say. So what axes exist, what possible axes work on this graph, okay? So what are the possible axes for this graph? We have a dot at -2, 3, and it's going up in this direction. What are the axes in English, and we'll do it in math? Go ahead. -2, good. So if you take a look, we're going to say then that. I will write that in math for you. X is greater than or equal to -2 MCR. Now, if you're having a hard time finding out how to do this, okay, just pick a random point on the line up here, okay? If you pick a random point on the line, okay, you're going to say, well, wow, that's bigger than -2, the x value. If the x value is to the right, is bigger than -2. No? Good?
Okay. This like tells you nothing.
It's okay, just hold on. For those who are, it doesn't tell you nothing. What it tells you is when you're doing a graph or an equation, what values make sense, that's what it tells you. Okay? There are certain functions we're going to deal with in this course where there are impossible values. So an example of a domain that you'd have in real life. Do you guys remember in grade 10? Your grade 10 math teacher would always have a question about when does the ball hit the ground? Okay, and one would be at like -2 seconds, and the other one would be at like 13 seconds. Is this coming back from grade 10 at all, right? A good domain for that question would say, well, the domain would be time has to be bigger than 0, right? Because there's no negative time, right? That's an example of when you could use domain for that, okay? So it's not useful for anything that is actual. Instead, your teacher's saying just ignore the negative time; it doesn't matter. We're just going to formally, do it here. Yeah.
Okay, so I did x star -2.
Yeah. Yeah, this works as well too. This is also correct. But x has to be on the right if you go less. Okay? So that works as well too. Okay? Because like they can flip, right? Either x is greater than -2 or -2 is less than x. Is that your question, Noah, or do you want to? Okay, can I get someone else to tell me what the range means in English and then give me what the range is for this question? Chris, go ahead.
The span of y.
Good. So what are the possible y values here? Okay, good.
Would I have to?
Sorry, go ahead, Matt. You said 3, but not really. 3 isn't the only y value, right? Okay. Go ahead, Matt.
3 and higher.
3 and higher, okay? So the way you write 3 and higher on markers.
You ever put different numbers in there?
What do you mean?
I think it was
Let me clarify, I'm sorry.
like if you use them for anything else.
Other than graphs? No, they're used for graphs. Okay, every single time you do a graph.
Other than like just stating what it is.
These are these squiggly things. That's for sets of numbers. Okay, when you guys get off to university and take math.
No, like the equation. I don't know if it's called an equation, but like the thing. Do you use them for anything other than like stating what it is?
No, we can solve them too, and we're going to solve them in this course. So we solve it for x, and solve it for range. Sorry, I'm just trying to get the information for what you have to ask. All right, so for what Matt said, which is correct, he said y is bigger than or equal to 3. So the range for this one, y such that y is greater than or equal to 3 y ER. You could have also written, or the range is y such that 3 is less than or equal to y, y ER. Either one of those is correct. Okay, are we feeling somewhat okay about that before we get to the trickier ones? Right, the idea is you're just going in one direction. For that, yes.
How do you know which way to put this, like the greater than
Well, I can just say it to yourself in English, right? Over here, x has, like, any value of x that you pick is bigger than -2, right? So this would be like -1, that would be 0, that would be 1. So the x values, most of the x values are bigger than -2 or equal to. So it's x is bigger than -2. That's what that means. Okay, so it's just like if you sort of say it in this, until you get used to it, just say it in a sentence to your head. What does that mean? Well, x is greater than or equal to -2, which means it should be on the right side of the dot there. Okay, other than that, next question. Are we okay? You guys are brave or afraid. I don't know which ones. Okay. Letter B says, oh, here's a good one. Okay, now hopefully with the, we did an example like this one yesterday, okay, and I'm hoping you guys knocked this one out of the park today. So I'm going to have, that is a downwards parabola with a vertex of 5, 7. Okay, so those people that raised their hands today are out for this question. Tori, are you with us here still? Please be with us. Okay, can somebody tell me either the domain or the range for this graph? Go ahead.
Domain is x such that x is a real number. Getty.
Right on. Awesome. Okay, Ari, why is this anything for a parabola?
Because the lines keep going infinitely outwards.
Right on. Like think, but it would go like this, and then further and further and further. Okay. If this equation would be something like this. If you think back to grade 10, okay, is anything going to cause a problem for x? I can plug in x equals 1,000 there if I want to. I can plug in x equals a zillion. That's not a real word, okay? I can plug in x equals a Google. I'll tell you what a Google is when we get to a little later on in the course, okay? But you can plug in any number, big or small, and you will actually not have an error. Okay? That's how you write anything. Okay, and hopefully you guys remember that from yesterday, I hope. And someone else that hasn't raised their hand yet, be brave, please. Alistair, give me the range, please.
Y such that y of 7.
Okay. Close. You have to make sure you do less than or equal to, because like the vertex is actually a point. So make sure that you have, right? Make sure that it has to be less than or equal to, right? The equal to has to be in there as well. Okay. So again, where this comes from, why this is useful. If this question were to say, Mr. Sadler shoots a basketball, the basketball net is 10 feet high. Will the ball even come close to the hoop? Well, no, it won't, okay? Because I can only get the ball 7 feet high. Okay, I can't get it at 10. Okay, that's what they're saying for this. Okay. Yeah,
Will that work with the other one too? So just y such as 7.
Yeah, sorry, yeah.
That works too?
Thank you, yeah. So you can write that if you want to. Range y such that 7 is greater than or equal to y. That looks a little awkward to me, but that still would work. Okay. Okay, right else? Yeah, go ahead. No, it isn't. Go ahead. Okay, so because if you're looking for this question here, you can go bigger than 5 forever, and you can go less than 5 forever, right? Like there's no stopping the x values. Okay, so all they're saying, this is just basically containing the x and the y values. That's all the domain and range does. Okay, so if there's no, you know what I mean, nothing stops it, then you can just write it. Yeah, right.
So you use the 7 because you can't go higher than 7.
Right on.
You can go as far down.
Right on. Okay. So that's like basically the stopping value of 7. That's what we're saying. Is this starting to make a little bit of sense? Small enough? Don't worry, we'll do this every day for the whole rest of the year. You'll have to do domain and range every graph at the beginning of this course, which is plenty.
Really?
Yes, really. Every graph we do will be domain and range. That's why I teach it first, because you have to do it 364 more times until the year's over. Okay? Oh, I didn't hear that. Okay, letter C. Okay, so this is a line. Okay, some people were freaked out because there were no points on the line. Okay, I'm going to make a point. Let's pretend I call this, you don't even need one though. What's the possible x values for a line? Let's say I have a line like this. What are the possible x values? Infinite, okay? How do you do infinite x values? What do you write? Right on, okay? So your domain is going to be anything. Now, for another line, what are the possible y values? Infinite. How do you do infinite y values? Anything again, okay? So even though there was no points on here, you didn't need them for a line, right? The only thing that would have been, hi, Miss Kelly, how are you? Yeah. The only thing, when's the only time for a line that the domain and range wouldn't be infinite? When's the only time? Sorry? Yes, that'd be a line segmental. Assume there are arrows, or there's another time it could be. Okay, go ahead. Right on. If the line's exactly like this, there's only going to be one y value. When the line's exactly like this, there's only going to be one x value. Okay, but for any sort of slanted thing, okay, there's going to be a both. Are we sort of on the same page for most people for that? Okay. And letter D, this one hopefully we should be feeling good for, we should be feeling decent about for this because it's sort of like B but sideways. This is a beautiful sideways parabola. Yeah, okay, that is a sideways parabola. It's going to be negative 2, comma 2. Okay, can someone be brave? Give me the, go ahead, please.
It would be x is greater.
Wonderful. Excellent. Okay, the only x values that work are when it's greater than or equal to negative 2. Okay, as far as the range, what's the range? What happens to the y values? And y values are infinite, right? So they go on forever. We're going to be talking a lot about this graph in this course. If you notice, these two graphs are very much related. Okay, we'll talk about that in a sec, though. Okay, go ahead.
This one.
Yeah.
You're on the whiteboard. How
Yeah.
come there's two straight lines straight across or straight down?
Right, so this, okay, so for this one here, this was one of the ones from homework, and I might have to do one of those if you want there. So all this question said was, draw a graph of this domain or this range, okay? So all we were doing for this, and it looks messy, okay? As long as all the points are within a box of x from negative 2 to 5, and y from negative 1 to 4 or 4. Okay, so I wouldn't have straight up and down, but as long as it starts at one corner and ends up at the opposite eventually, okay, that's okay. I can do one of those if you want here in a sec. I'm going to do letter F from last night, and then do I still need to do letter F before letter F? Can we do letter F still? Oh, I know that one yours is, but I see somebody else wrote F up here. You still want me to do that for Lucas? Hannah, that was you? You still want it up there? Good? Yeah. Okay, cover a piece of paper then, please, and I'll, leave this, yeah, cover this and all. Letter F. Okay. This is homework sheet number F. The question looks something like this, give or take. That's a bad oval, okay? Assume that's a perfect oval, okay? What are the key points that I need for this? What are like the key dimensions that I'm going to need for this in order to do domain array? Okay, please be brave here. Sorry? Good, yes, okay. But as far as this graph goes, what are the key like parts of the circle or oval that I'm going to need to worry about? Highest and the lowest, okay? So what's going to concern me, if I put a little dotted line like this, and I put a little dotted line like this, that's my range. My range is just from there to there. Okay, so I need to go all the way up to the highest point, all the way down to the bottom. The range is the span between the top and the bottom. Okay. In the same way, using blue, the domain is, you're going to go all the way to the left and all the way to the right, and this is your domain. Right, so that's going to span your x values. Okay. Does that make sense before I actually fill in the numbers there? No, these are definitely not going to be infinite because you can't, you know what I mean? You can't pick a point down here. There's no point. Okay. Okay, so we're going to say for this one, this point over here is almost negative 4. Okay, we're going to say. This point over here is almost a little over 7. Okay, this point down here is about negative 2. And this one at the top is about 5. And I apologize, the homework it was difficult. I photocopied this out of the textbook, and I like what Cecilia did. I hope you don't mind if I'm embarrassing in front of the class. she wrote the numbers on the axes to make it easier for herself. So she wrote for this number, and it's easy for me to take this up now, because she wrote 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, left and right, just to make sure, okay? Thank you. So that's that. Okay. As far as my domain though, how do I write a domain from -4 to 7?
I think you can just like that.
Sorry.
-4 less than or equal to x.
Arranged in the same way, y goes from -2 to 5, is that right? I will make sure if I give you a question like this on your assignment or your test, I'll be very clear on what the span is there. Because that really, I think it was like 7.25, you know what I mean? Like there's some weird, they're just off the edge of the points there. Take a look at that one. Okay, so did that help at all with that one? Somebody was saying, I didn't think I could do domain and range because it wasn't a function, okay? There's still a span of the graph, even if it's a function or not, okay? Why is just a reminder, because somebody was wondering about, somebody looked at my videos last night and didn't get what was a function. Why is this one not going to be a function? Go ahead.
Because you draw a vertical line, you can intersect more than one point.
Right, at any point on this actually, except for maybe the very end, okay? But let's say I go here, there's one problem, right? At that point right there, there's two answers, right? Anytime that happens, okay, and it's called the vertical line test because you can do it with your hand. I'm going to do it with graph paper, okay, right? But anytime there's two answers for an x, it's not going to be a function.
I have a question.
Yes.
So, like this side, I don't understand why they're the same.
Sorry, a little smaller.
I don't understand why, like, there's a -4 and then there's like x is bigger than -4.
Yeah.
Right?
So x is greater than -4, which it is.
Yeah.
Okay,
What
so,
is-
but x is also smaller than 7. So x, all this means is x is in the middle of -4 and 7. X is greater than -4, and x is smaller than 7. Right, so x is in the middle of -4.
What does x represent?
It's any number between here and here. X is like the value in the graph, right? So the possible values for this are between -4 and 7 that have a y value. Okay? All right, can I keep going? I apologize, I'm going to snub you, Taylor. I'm going to, the second period, I'll come down and we'll do that question if you don't mind. Thanks, I want to get all right, let's pause this and now please be brave. I just said I snubbed Taylor and I'm sorry about that. I want